Thank you all for being here tonight. And also thank you for walking on this path in whatever way you're choosing to do that. And it's an individual journey for each one of us because we're individuals. So the way my path, my journey looks is not going to be the way everyone else's is going to look, and nor does it have to. What I love about the Buddhist teachings is that they're a take it or leave it kind of teachings. You know, you can take what works for you. Yeah, take what works for you and then let go of the rest. And as we embody these teachings and we choose to really open our hearts to this path, then the things that I'm talking about up here will start to take form in ways that we will never imagine. So you'll hear a teaching, one of these teachings, and you'll be like, huh, yeah, okay, whatever. Or maybe you'll be falling asleep, trying to listen. And then one day something will happen and you'll be like, oh, okay, that's what that meant, right? So a lot of you know that I've been covering the Four Noble Truths and the Noble Eightfold Path. And the Four Noble Truths are the encapsulation of the Buddhist path. And when I first started hearing about the Four Noble Truths, I had the, as you probably already know, I had the yeah, whatever. Here we go again, the Four Noble Truths. What's so damn noble about them? Anyhow, but the further, and I was just meditating. I just wanted to meditate. I didn't care about Buddhism. I didn't care about any isms. Don't tell me an ism. I just want to meditate. I want to be free. I'm going to use Vipassana meditation to become free. Right? And then one day I decided to get really serious about the Four Noble Truths because I had to start teaching them. I was like, uh-oh. I have to start, people are asking me to teach this. I better really study up on it. And what I realized is that I had been experiencing and deepening the Four Noble Truths all along with my practice. But it's much more helpful when you do it intentionally. And I love the Four Noble Truths now. It's no longer a yeah. I get really excited about them. Right? So the first noble truth, as you remember, we covered about a month ago, is the truth of suffering. Do you remember the Pali term?
Dukkha.
Good, dukkha. Like dookie. Sorry. That's a southern term. Anyhow, the truth of suffering, that in life, there's going to be, suffering is inherent in life and you can't avoid it. As a human being, especially, particularly the untrained mind, right? The second noble truth, the truth of the cause of suffering, does anyone remember what that is?
Craving. Craving,
right? Craving, a lot of desiring, wanting to have it a certain way, my way. It's called tanha, clinging, attachment. So what happens is we want things a certain way and we crave it a certain way, and then we have aversion if it doesn't show up that way. We get upset and then we get angry, and we keep trying to force and manipulate, control things to go a certain way. And all of that push, pull, tug of war causes our suffering. And we talked about how pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional, and that suffering is our relationship to our present moment experience. If we're trying to cling or attach or crave or get rid of, then we're causing suffering. So tonight, the third noble truth. So the first two are the bad news, right? Truth of suffering and the cause. Well, the last two are the good news. So tonight we're going to start moving into the good news, the positive part of this. And as I said before, that the Buddha, a lot of people say that in the first noble truth, he said what the problem or the sickness was, the ailment. And then the second noble truth, he diagnosed the ailment, where it was coming from, this cause. And the third noble truth is that he's saying, hey, by the way, you can get healed from this ailment. Right? So cessation, the truth of cessation of suffering. Cessation of suffering, or the end of suffering, is possible. That's pretty good news, right? So that's what I'm going to talk about tonight. And this end of cessation of suffering is called Nibbana in Pali, Nirvana in Sanskrit. It's also called enlightenment, liberation, awakening, right? When we're no longer encapsulated or imprisoned by this cycle of craving and wanting and needing to get rid of. And so according to the Buddha, when this cessation of suffering happens, or Nibbana happens, we're no longer creating any more karma. Before we were karma creating machines, what goes around comes around. When our mind becomes free from the mental defilements that used to visit it, the difficult mental defilements, we're no longer creating any karma. And according to the Buddha, there's no more rebirth. So once you leave this life, you no longer have to come back. Anybody feel that's good news? I've heard people say, I don't know about reincarnation, but I'm not coming back. Anybody ever said that? No, not in this room, right? So if I have on there Tanhakaya, Nirvana is also called Tanhakaya because it's the extinction of this thirst for becoming, this thirst, the craving thirst, and the aversion. The end of clinging. So why might it be important to believe in the third noble truth, that the end of suffering and craving is possible?
Give you hope.
Okay.
Give you hope.
So give you hope. What else? Short answers. No stories, please. There's an end. Yay. Right?
You can't do it if you don't believe it.
Okay, so if you believe it, then you're more apt to be able to do it. Good.
Is life seen as a punishment? One's life?
Is that a question?
Yes.
Yeah, I'll answer that in the Q&A period. Yeah, thank you. Did you have something to say in the back? I saw another hand. No?
What was your question again?
Why might it be important to believe that the end of suffering and craving is possible?
Then we can be free.
Good. So motivation to be free. Right, and believe in freedom. Good. So great answers, right? When we're stuck, we're despondent, we're depressed, if we know that there's an end to this, it's possible, it'll help motivate us to get out of our stuckness. Right? Why even go through all this trouble of meditating every day and showing up and learning these teachings and practicing mindful awareness moment to moment to moment if there's not going to be some hopeful benefit from all of this. Right? In the time of the Buddha, it was really interesting. He would give a talk and people would have become enlightened immediately. And he had so many students that became enlightened, thousands in his lifetime, because they saw all these other enlightened people. and they experience their teachings. And just them seeing the freedom and the joy and the peacefulness that these other people had really gave them the motivation to practice with diligence so that they too could be free. So the other good news about this is the third noble truth with the cessation of suffering. We know that we learn through watching our mind, right, that we create our own karma. The way we choose to think will motivate our actions, and the way we act will motivate the results, consequences of our life, right? Anybody know what I'm talking about? And so we, in a way, we have some control over our karma, and we have some control over our mental defilements. We're not stuck with them. We can purify our mind through mindful awareness and through this practice. So we are in the driver's seat. There's some control over how much effort and energy we put into it. We can move towards the liberation. When I used to run, they used to hold a string across the end of the race. Anybody here ran? Yeah. And so kind of like, to the finish line, here we go. We can do that. We can move ourselves towards the finish line. But we have to depend on ourselves, right? We have to depend on ourselves to remove the causes of suffering. We can't depend on anyone else to do it for us. That's the bad news. So there's good news that we can. It's in our hands, and the bad news is, you know, you can try. You come up here afterwards and I'll touch you and see if you're free from now on. Okay, here's a joke. Did you hear about the claustrophobic astronaut? She just needed a little space. That wasn't that funny, huh?
No, it's good. It's good.
I liked it.
It's clever.
So as we know, everything in the conditioned realm, we're in the conditioned realm, everything that we see, everything that we can touch, including our bodies and our best friends, the book we're reading or the Kindle is of the conditioned realm, right? So anything we can see, touch, hear is from the conditioned realm, and everything in the conditioned realm is of the nature to end. And what else? Change. Right? So everything is impermanent. Everything. And everything is changing. Everything is finite. Everything is born. It lives. It fluctuates. And then it dies. Right? Everything. Even the highest mountain. When you learn about history, they talk about when these certain mountain ranges arose out of big pieces of ice or whatever, earthquakes. It's like, isn't that startling? It's hard to believe that a mountain didn't used to exist. Or there's certain plains where they say this used to be ocean. But everything's finite. And we need to really look at the mind. The mind works in very peculiar ways. Have you anyone noticed that? Yeah. It's, you know, you do develop a sense of humor when you start this practice. If you don't, you get really depressed. But on one hand, we want everything to be wonderful all the time. Anybody notice that? Right? And if anything isn't wonderful, we think that something has gone wrong. What's gone wrong? Something bad, something wrong. Right? And then the mind immediately goes into needing to fix and control and manipulate, wanting it to be right. It wants it to be pleasant all the time. And on the other hand, Our minds, if you studied with Rick Hansen, the Buddhist brain, you've heard about the negativity bias. So we want things to be wonderful all the time on this hand. On the other hand, the untrained mind is prone to be very focused on the negative, right? So we have this negativity bias. So we focus on the negative. And you can be in the most beautiful day, the most wonderful day of your life, right? Everything is roses. And one negative thing will happen that day, and it takes over your whole day for hours. Does anybody know what I'm talking about? And all you can think about is that one negative thing that happened. And your mind will grab it and it'll chew on it and chew on it and chew on it, ruin your mood. And you don't notice the beautiful birds sitting at the bird feeder. You might not notice how wonderful the sun feels on your skin or whatever the sweet things that are happening. Right? So we quit being open to things when we're stuck. So the Aneka Jati verses, I had to chant every day when I was a nun twice a day. Aneka Jati Samsaram Sandave Samanadisam Yaha Karaka De Tosi Nageham Nakahasi Sabate Pasuka Beka Yaha Katam Visankarakatam Chetam Tananam Kayama Jaka. I can't believe I remember that. But this is what the Buddha said when he became enlightened. These are the words that he said when he became enlightened, when he reached nirvana. I wandered through the rounds of countless births, seeking but not finding the builder of this house. Sorrowful indeed is birth again and again. O house builder, you have now been seen. You shall build no house for me anymore. All your rafters have been broken, your ridgepole shattered. My mind has attained the unconditioned freedom. Achieved is the end of craving. Achieved is the end of craving. I have attained the unconditioned freedom. That's pretty positive, isn't it? Yeah. And that's why we had to change it twice a day, to remind ourselves why we were practicing, what we're doing here. So the human mind, like I said before, tends to see everything as permanent. When an unpleasant experience hits, we tend to catastrophize. Anybody notice this is the untrained mind? Tends to catastrophize and thinks that this negativity will last forever. Does anybody know what I'm talking about here? What's really interesting is that the human being tends to notice when the difficult experience begins, but doesn't tend to notice when it ends. This is the nature of the human mind. I used to work as a healer, energy healer. I got the ability to do energy work, healing. Had success with it. But anyhow, people would come to me and I'd do healing work on them, and then they would have this really painful or sickness or event. Then they would feel some better, and then maybe work on them a few times, and then next time they came to me, that thing no longer bothered them. That pain or back pain or whatever. And I said, well, when did it end? And they'd go, huh? When did it end? Oh, I don't know. But now, whatever's bothering me. So it was very clear that people didn't notice. Or if their pain went away while I was working the healing with them, they wouldn't know when it went away. So we only tend to know when the pleasant has turned into the unpleasant. That's the untrained mind. But with mindful awareness, what we're trying to train ourselves to do is to be aware, including all the beginnings and endings of all experiences, not just the negative ones, right? The mind has to get the liberating insight into the end of craving, when the end of craving happens. In particular, be aware and appreciate the endings of negative experiences. We really want to focus on these and notice them. I had, anybody had the stomach bug flu before? If you notice that when the nausea goes away, the exact second it goes away, and the relief that takes over the body, whew. Well, we want to do that with all difficult experiences. As soon as we feel relief or peace, or the mind has finally let go of whatever it was dwelling on, take a moment to really soak that in, right? Because we're trying to train the mind to be aware of the cessation, the ending of suffering. We're training the mind to do that, right? So we do it moment to moment to moment. When we see the cravings end, perhaps we're craving something really badly, having a hard time letting go, be really aware of when that craving goes away. I was once craving something really sweet, and I remember thinking I had to get the sweet, sweet thing. I don't remember what it was. Maybe it was chocolate or something. And so I sat down and meditated on it and brought my awareness to the strong craving for sweet. And as I sunk down into this craving, I realized I was thirsty. So I got up, drank a glass of water, and that craving was gone. But for some reason, my body or my mind turned it into a thirst for something sweet. Right? Yes?
As you're talking, I'm thinking I have a hiatal hernia that sometimes acts up, and what happens is when you're swallowing food, sometimes food gets stuck here and it becomes a really painful experience. And there's nothing you can do. Drinking water won't do, standing up won't do, massaging it doesn't do. And I've learned over time to just sit with it, and that really made so clear when it passes, the relief is really noticeable. So that kind of helped open my eyes to exactly what you're talking about.
The end of craving, great, or the end of cessation of suffering. Yeah. Yeah, and turning towards that pain is also turning towards your suffering instead of trying to get rid of it, which is what we've been talking about doing, every time you come here. So that's very skillful. So, also the mind tends to believe that wonderful experiences are supposed to last forever. Now, what is this called in Buddhism? Delusion. Right? If everything in the conditioned realm is impermanent, why would it last forever? Why would wonderful, positive experiences are just as temporary as difficult or neutral ones, right? Anybody had a new car before?
Yeah.
How long did that new car smell last? Well, you just got a new car, didn't you? Yeah, it doesn't last forever, does it? But we think it should. So we need to notice the ending of positive experience as well, so we can stop clinging to things, right? Not wanting them to end, that's the clinging, so that we can know that they're going to end and enjoy what we've got when we've got it, right? Here's a story. A plane hit a patch of severe turbulence and the passengers were holding on tight as it rocked and reeled through the night. A lady turned to a minister who was sitting behind her and said, "You're a man of God. Can't you do something about this?" He replied, "Sorry, I can't. I'm in sales, not management." So of course, mindful awareness, bringing our mindful attention and awareness, compassionate, kind awareness to our present moment experience is the key to breaking this chain of clinging, craving, and suffering. And if you've taken my Basics of Mindfulness meditation class, I go through a whole class on Vedana, feeling tones, pleasant, unpleasant, neutral, and we explore our experience of pleasant, unpleasant, neutral Vedana. Because if we can be with the Vedana as an automatic reaction, this nervous system is wired to have a reaction to every experience as pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. Right? And if we can be with that Vedana of pleasant, unpleasant, neutral, with mindful compassion, awareness, we will not, it won't trigger us into mental proliferation that causes suffering and cravings. So we try to just be with it as pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. So in the short term, we can't do much about it. We can't get rid of the feeling tone. It arises spontaneously. So we're not trying to change the feeling tone, just be with it. Be with it. So this is the Buddha's words. Now when we experience a pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral sensation, one knows that it is impermanent. Then it does not bind one. That it is not experienced with clinging. Whatever may be the sensation, one experiences it without being bound to it. One knows that all sensations will be pacified with the dissolution of the body, just as the flame of a lamp goes out when oil and wick give out. So the epitome of non-clinging is equanimity. And equanimity is not insensitivity, it's not indifference, it's not apathy. It's simply that one does not push one's experience away, aside, the ones that one dislikes, and we don't grasp at things that we prefer. We're going to have preferences, but we don't grasp at things that we prefer. And the more we look at our minds, our bodies, our hearts, we start to see when our equanimity is lost, when the stress or suffering occurs. And then we can look at the chain of events, what brought us to this contracted, painful place. Right? So once we start to see what brings us in this contracted, these habits of mind that we are in, we just have habits, bad habits, good habits. But we want to drop the bad habits, but we have to see them clearly. What causes us stress? What causes others in our relationship stress? Right? These are some of the habits we might want to let go of. If we can see them clearly with mindful awareness, we automatically start to let them go. The cessation of suffering happens automatically just through mindful awareness. Here's a quote from the Buddha. "O nobly born, there is the unborn, undying, and unconditioned. Were there not the unborn, undying, and unconditioned, there would be no escape for the born, dying, and conditioned. Since there is the unborn, undying, and unconditioned, so there is escape for the born, dying, and conditioned." And then he goes in another quote, he says, "Those who have realized nirvana are the happiest beings in the world. They are free from all complexes and obsessions, the worries and troubles that torment others. They have great mental health. They do not repent the past, nor do they brood over the future. They live fully in the present moment. Therefore, they appreciate and enjoy things in the purest sense without self-projection. They are joyful, exultant, enjoying the pure life. Their faculties are pleased, free from anxiety, serene, and peaceful. They are free from selfish desire, hatred, ignorance, conceit, pride, and all such defilements. They are pure and gentle, full of universal love, compassion, kindness, empathy, understanding, and tolerance." That's the finish line. And that's the path that we're moving towards. And those of you who've been on the path for a while, several of you have, can feel and know that more of these positive energies have been taking over and less of the other ones. They've been falling away more and more. And out of compassion for ourselves and our own suffering and compassion for the human race, we practice. We show up. We open our hearts. We open our minds to whatever wants to arise in this moment to help us move maybe 1 inch forward or 1 foot or a mile on our path. So pay attention to the endings of experiences, particularly the endings of suffering. And each time you do, you will have realized the third noble truth, the cessation of suffering. Thank you for your diligent listening.